Hello, I'm Ali Patterson and welcome to another episode of The Fintech Show. This week, we're marvelling at the changes the traditional bank branch has undergone in a world that has begun to question its relevance. Cash process automation experts Glory Global tell us about how they're keeping branches on the proverbial tree for businesses around the world. Danske Bank gives us their perspective on the future of face-to-face communication in the financial industry. And finally, we're joined by the Post Office, whose spaces have proved to be a haven for SMEs across the UK. Let's have a look-see. What is the state of branch banking in the UK like at the moment? Are there branch closures across the country? Are there demands for branches still at the moment? What's your take on the state of branch banking?
The demand for branches is still there. I'm happy to report branches are still out there. They are thriving. They are less than what they're used to be out there, but they're still there. And they're going through transformation. They've been going through transformation for a while. Transformation is old news. And at this point in time, we're at a phase where you see branches which are returning to focus on customer advice and service. And they're really trying again to return to be a part of the community that they are present in. So that's a big focus. You see that when we speak with banks across the region, you see a big focus on community, because being part of the community basically creates trust in the bank and the brand for them. If I can say one thing that is different from what has been happening in the past, is that there's a strong focus on experience. It's really difficult. So that's the biggest competitive advantage that the bigger banks have over fintechs and the new entrants. They have the distribution, and customers associate that with good service. They feel more comfortable when there is a branch near them. There are so many dimensions to a face-to-face experience.
If you look towards developing countries, the role of the branch is very much kind of the center of the relationship with the customer. But looking at the Nordic countries, where Danske Bank is mainly situated, due to a very good infrastructure and high digitalization, the role of the branch is not necessarily focused on daily banking interactions, where you will see elsewhere in the world, but much more on maybe the more hard or complex conversations. So where you in Mexico would go to your branch and open an account or order a credit card, we see that our customers and actually also non-customers expect that to be done very easily in a digital interface.
Absolutely. It seems to vary hugely from region to region. We saw did you see the branch boat in Indonesia?
No.
They had a branch on a boat going from island to island.
Okay.
And they had it like a schedule, so the bank will be here on certain days.
Yeah. Just like the library bus we have in Denmark.
Yeah.
Kind of the same.
But it is down to obviously Denmark, and Europe generally is quite advanced when it comes to various infrastructure. Do you think in developing countries there's the opportunity to almost leapfrog a physical branch network?
Yeah, maybe. I think it kind of again depends on expectations towards what's a relationship, where do I feel safe? If you compare it to something else also within financial services, you can look at Africa as a continent where you've seen mobile payments or banking actually leapfrogging or taking to a completely different stage. So it might happen, but I think it links a little bit back to where do you feel, because it's money, it's what enables your dreams and your life. So there needs to be this element of trust to be able to take that leapfrog. And then on the very technical side, I think we are very gifted in the Nordic region by having bank IDs, having a public sector also fueling this transformation, and that is probably also needed.
I think worldwide, the banking industry is dealing with a change in customer usage of a bank. It's leading to a direct challenge to the whole provision of a multi-function complex branch network, whereby not just access to simple elements like cash, but also access to advice, information and understanding of more complex banking products. You end up with a branch network that is one size fits all, which is less and less required as the industry changes. So I think we see a segregation into simple services, cash in and cash out, which is really where we come in the UK, versus the still required provision of complex financial advice from trained knowledgeable individuals from the bank to their prospective customers about mortgages, life insurance, pensions, those kind of through life products that all of us need.
How does the post office fit into the financial industry?
In two main ways. One is that we provide our own services and products through our own branch network. So if you bought a post office savings product or a post office insurance product, you would be buying from the post office. Separately, and the area I'm responsible for, I look after all of our partner banking relationships. So this is an increasingly vital part of the financial horizon, whereby we are providing services for customers of all banks, irrespective of where they are in the country, to be able to access their bank accounts through any post office counter.
Let's talk a little bit about SME, or as they say in America, mom and pop shops. These are obviously small businesses, backbone of the economy. If you're, say, a restaurant in a tourist area, you are going to be expected to take cash from tourists. And then, of course, you need a way of depositing that cash. So there is quite a strong argument there for branches. What's the where do you see the relationship between these SMEs and, of course, Danske Bank and your physical network?
Yes. I think, as you say, many of those smaller companies are the backbone of the society. And we as a bank, of course, need to help facilitate kind of their financial dreams also. And I think it's everything from now. You mentioned cash that is paid in whether it's the restaurant or somewhere else, and they need to deposit that into the bank. And we have a responsibility in knowing our customer, but that's regardless of whether it's the branch or a different digital channel. What we see most often with these types of customers is that they would use the branch when they onboard. So when they become a customer of Danske, it would be important to sit down and say, hey, this is actually my child, because that's often how you see that company, right? Whether it's a family business or just a startup or something that has been in generation but still smaller, you need to feel that trust and that relationship. And especially when shifting banks, I think the branch has an important role here. But as with everything else, if you as a customer prefer a digital channel, of course we should be able to support you in that as well.
In a lot of ways, the evolution of branch has outpaced some of the needs that consumers had. So branch was evolving based on the needs of retail customers. But there is another customer, the SME customer, that still has transactional needs, are not fulfilled by some of the self-service technology that is left behind in the branch for all the transactional needs. What do you do about those customers? And you see that the SME segment is underserved as a result. Banks realize that. Banks have a very clear view of their customers. They see SME as an important segment as well, which is why you see the partnerships with Post Office, where SME customers can go there and deposit.
The ability to offer new services and innovative services to those customers in effectively non-bank branch locations is really dependent on the kind of tech that we can deploy. If I consider our transactions at present in the Post Office are all handled at the counter, whether you're a small business looking to deposit funds and get back out quickly to your business and carry on trading, or whether you're an elderly customer or an eBayer or a multi-parcel sender, you all get the same experience at the counter. Increasingly, the role of tech is to be able to pull that transaction apart and say, if you're wanting to come in, quickly deposit cash and be gone, you can do that in an automated way. Deposit the cash, wave at the postmaster, and be back in your own business. It gives that business customer a better journey, and equally it gives the customer who requires some extra help at the counter the time and the space to be able to do it. So we actually improve customer services and the customer journey in the branch by separating out those kind of transactions. And I think it's that kind of innovation which will see more throughput, more people being able to serve in a multi-retail environment, irrespective of the square footage, if you like, as the technology becomes quicker, smaller, more agile, and that's a process that we're working through with a number of our suppliers right now. Essentially 99% of the UK population can access their bank accounts through a post office. But we recognise that not everybody has a bank account. We also supply cash out through our POCA service, our post office card account, which is to the recipients of benefits countrywide. We service about £1 billion a month out to that market. Many of those customers don't have bank accounts, And to augment that, we're also starting to work with aggregators, i.e. companies that bring together many of the credit unions in the UK, so that if you have a credit union account, you can also access it at a post office. From a cash services perspective, we're very much working that whatever account you have with whatever financial institution you choose to work with or that you can work with, you can access it through a post office, which is a huge democratisation of cash. I think when it comes to the democratisation of broader financial services, I think the ability to lift from the banks the requirement to fund branches with cash supplies, with all of the accoutrements of carrying cash in and out of the branches, in favour of simply providing a focused branch that can offer a complex product advice to customers, I think is a huge step forward to enable them to be in more facilities than they would otherwise be able to, because there's no cash involved, there's just the provision of good advice to customers who need it.
The post office is playing a big role. Where I live, in the town centre, there used to be 5 years ago 2 banks. Now there's only post office. There are probably about 15 shops. These are small, medium-sized businesses. Again, where do they go with their takings? They do accept cash. Probably a lot of their business is in cash. And post office is filling that gap for the banks.
As a consumer, I very rarely have cash or even checks to pay in, maybe once a year. But an SME, particularly someone like a hairdresser or a taxi driver, they've got to cater for a huge amount of different needs, whether someone wants to pay card, whether somebody wants to pay points, or whether somebody wants to pay cash. They have to be able to accept that. So even if, say, 1 in 500 pays cash, they still need to be able to have access to paying that in.
Yeah, that's critical. That's an important part of providing a service. I'll share with you a small experience that I had recently. My daughter loves the hologram on the credit and debit card, so she took my card out and she hid it under her pillow. I didn't notice that I actually lost my card. I've been going around using my Apple Pay on my phone to pay for things, using my debit card that way. I didn't realize I didn't have my card until I needed to use an ATM. And I needed to use an ATM because I needed to pay with cash. And these two things are interlinked.
Running a branch network is incredibly expensive and arguably quite inefficient compared to, say, a digital app network. What are some of the elements that you can look to put in place to ensure that the cost is justified within a branch network?
Yeah, I think I need to start with saying that, yes, you can take a relatively one-dimensional look and say, where do we spend money, right? That's one aspect. If we kind of put that aside a bit and say, okay, from a customer perspective, where do we bring the value? And we know we bring a huge sense of value in the dialogue, in the branches, and in the advisory given there. We also know that it's often linked to the digital channels and the expectations there. But as a combination or as a whole, we can also see that because our footprint and number of branches has been lowered over the past years, that doesn't mean that the number of interactions with our customers are decreasing as well. So we actually see a higher number of interaction per customer.
Can you tell me a little bit about this emerging trend of non-branch locations being used as bank branches?
This is one of the impacts of the branch transformation exercise. So as branches become more focused on offering a better service to their customers and more focused on advice and the experience in that area, transactions have moved away from it, because transactions where customers transact isn't exactly where they go to buy mortgage, and vice versa. So the location convenience is important for customers, and I think it's the right thing to do to offer them that convenience of transaction where they're already present. For example, Shell, in partnership with Postbank in Germany, is providing cash withdrawal and some banking services at Shell petrol stations. So if you're there and you're buying petrol, which you might inevitably end up doing at some point, you can withdraw cash while you're while you're paying for your petrol. So that's part of that convenience. Then you have a lot of it is also, in some cases, it boils down to the cost of doing service. I think that's an important segment of it, of the overall business case, because you're reducing the cost of serving your customer, you're getting closer to customers at the same time, and you're providing a convenient point of access for your customers, as well as not just retail customers, but providing a service to your SME customers as well, who no longer have to walk to the branch. They can recycle cash at the point of sale.
Using other locations, we would need to be absolutely sure that it goes hand in hand with the brand of Danske, and that the perception for the customer was, hey, this makes sense for me. I'm okay with going to the coffee shop or the post office or the supermarket, or yeah, exactly. But I think if you see that it's somewhere you trust, then it would definitely make sense for us to look at that. Having said that, I would also say that the footprint we have today, I don't experience a massive need for 500 new physical locations. We're of course all the time aware of, hey, should we scale up, or what's the need, right? So maybe it's more, not so much finding a new physical location, but understanding how does financial services fit into other interfaces or other ways of interacting.
How can Glory re-engineer the branch to enable institutions to match new customer behaviors and demands?
Our role in the branch is to provide technology that helps customers in performing transactions, in automating them, in providing a great customer experience in that area. We identified the gap in the market some time ago where we could see that SME segment was underserved. They had very specific requirements. The account holder isn't always the person who comes in to transact. They have specific needs when it comes to the receipt that they get. They need to be able to deposit multiple media like notes, cash, and check in one transaction, get one receipt. We looked at that segment very closely, so therefore a lot of our solutions are specifically designed to cater to that market, to look after that requirement. So the objective is that these customers can come in and get the same level of service that the retail customers are getting. So if you look at the way the cash is going, it's on a downward trajectory in general. And the retail customers are, their primary need is to get the cash out for those emergencies and the needs that they have wherever they can't use card or they prefer to use cash. SMEs, on the other hand, are basically where all the cash is going, so they need to bring that cash into the branch, they need to deposit it into their account. As we go through into the future, this is where these devices that we've developed for SMEs will become the place where retail customers can get cash out primarily. This will become the primary mode of getting cash out it's the best way of recycling cash within the branch.
Historically, a lot of organisations have flirted with this. You still have cash back at supermarkets. Why has this not been completely utilised? It seems such an obvious thing. There must be a catch.
There is. So the cashback is different from what we're trying to do. So there are different market forces that are coming together now that make this an ideal opportunity. First off, you have fintechs. So Glory has invested in CPS in Europe, in Germany, which works under two brands, Barzahlen and Via Cash. Now, Via Cash is basically it's allowing customers to do exactly what we discussed just now. You can go online, you can choose the retailer that you'd like to withdraw cash from. You can visit that retailer and get your cash, and off you go. The other side of this is that, so you add convenience factor to it. It's not about going to a specific retailer, buying something that you need to buy, and then as part of that transaction you get cash back. It's about fulfilling a need that you have without any attachments to it. So that's the first part. The other is the convenience of knowing exactly what you're doing. So today you might go to an ATM and it might be out of service. The ability to know that the place exactly where you need to go, and knowing and the comfort that you will get what you need is paramount. It's very different from experience that we had in the past. The third thing that I'd like to add is that we've talked about transaction pre-staging for a long time in our segment within the financial industry. but you don't see it widely implemented. But a solution like Via Cash, a solution that allows you to pre-stage that transaction on your mobile and withdraw cash at any retail location near you, it's doing pre-staging for you as well. So it brings all of those elements together. You have to look at it from the retailer's perspective, the SME perspective as well. They need to, there are different levels that you can work with. So at the lowest level, you have a very small amount of cash, which can be easily handled by the retailer within their till. Then as you go higher on the chain, you notice that some retailers who've previously deployed the ATMs, they will have to move cash from their till securely to the ATM so that it can be dispensed to consumers. Well, imagine their till was secure and it was recycling cash for them, including notes and coins. And that's what we're looking at here. So we're looking at point of sale where customers pay for their purchases in cash, and the same cash could be recycled without ever touching it back to consumers for those who want to withdraw cash. And that's add another element, an entire cash handling element and comfort for the retailer.
That's all for this week's episode of the Fintech Show, but be sure to check out the rest of our series and much more over at fintech.finance. Ciao.